This specific webinar is going to go through how to view progress and results on the site. We do have 101 and 201 sessions, and we have live sessions of those, and we also have them available on our site. So if you haven't already, going through especially the 201, where you learn how to create different types of assignments and benchmarks, is obviously critical to be able to view results and the progress for those. So I'm just going to get logged in here as a sample teacher, and everything I'm going to go through is exactly what you have in your teacher account. And just to quickly point out where those other webinar sessions are if you need those. When you log in, you're going to have a webinars button right here on your home page. And when you go there, here you can view our pre-recorded webinars. So we have, again, the 101 session, which goes over a lot of our different instructional resources. And then we have the 201 session, how to create assignments and benchmarks. And then the 301 is obviously what you're viewing today. And we do have a recorded version of that as well. Okay, so again, assuming that you've given assignments and benchmarks to students, obviously the goal in that is to view how students are doing with the different standards in your content area. So we're going to start first by just viewing an assignment result, and then we'll go into benchmarks. So with assignments, you can assign all different types of activities. So practice questions, practice tests, vocabulary, performance tasks, video, all of that can be assigned. And the results for all of those assignments look the same. The one thing that's different is going to be a benchmark. So that's why it's a separate point on your notes. But for an assignment, we're going to look at the results for a video. But again, practice questions, practice tests, performance task, they're all going to look like this. So I can see I have 1 out of 5 students has completed this assignment, and over on the right I can go in and click to view the results. When you click to view the results, you'll see your list of students who have and have not completed it. You always have an export where you can export your results into Excel if you need to, but you'll have the date that the assignment was completed. And notice that the date is pink. That is to indicate that the assignment was completed after the due date. So if that's the case, either the date will be pink, or if you're looking at your gradebook, the score itself will be pink. So we don't take any points off for a late assignment, but we do at least flag it so that way you know it's late. And I'll talk about how you can, if you want to just close out an assignment at the due date and not allow students to work on it late. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. And then you'll have the student score. You'll be able to see how long the student spent working on that assignment, their number of attempts, and if you gave them multiple attempts, which you can do in your assignment settings, if let's say they had 3 attempts or they used 3 attempts, you'll see a 3 there, and you'll see their best score displayed here. Then if you want to go in and view the result in detail, you can click View, and you can see, in this case, the student did not get any questions correct, but if I click View, I can see how the student answered the question and what the correct answer was. So you'll be able to, again, specifically go in and take a look at how the student performed. And also on here I can see in more detail when exactly that assignment was due and exactly the time even that the student completed it. So then if I go back here, again, you can print or export, and the assignment results are very basic. So again, you just get the date completed, score, time, attempts with a view button. So if you're looking for something more detailed, that's what we're going to take a look at next, which is going to be in your benchmarks tab. And benchmarks are our most popular feature on the site because a benchmark allows you to go in and make a custom assessment, whether it's 5 questions or 100. So you can use it however you want to, whether it's practice or a more official test for your class, but a benchmark will have the overall best results of anything that we have on the site. And so again, you have your number completed. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the results for a benchmark. And already, instead of having, that little pop-up window with your scores, you're sent to a completely new page. And you'll have your average at the top. You'll have your scores by standard, and you can break that down at your domain level or specifically at the standard level. And so this already will give you a quick glance into what standards your students did well in and which ones they didn't do as well in on the benchmark. By default, it's going to show results for all of your classes, but you do have a class sort at the top if you wanted to view class by class. You could do that. Then down at the bottom, you'll have a grade distribution chart for all of your students. Next, you'll have an individual students tab where you have the date that the benchmark was completed. Right below that, you have the elapsed time for how long the student spent working on that benchmark. You have the student name, their teacher and class, and then you have their scores over here on the right. Now, for certain states and certain content areas, we do have a correlation score, like you can see here, and that correlation score is really just to give you kind of a prediction into what this benchmark score would translate to on the actual state test for your content area. So you'll see that for some states and content, some don't have it, some do, just depending on what's been released by the Department of Education for the scoring guidelines. And then again, I have my scores, and I can go in and view a result in detail. So if I wanted to meet with this student right here for a Scump, I can click View, and this will take me to his specific result page. I can see his average compared to the class. I also can look at his scores by standard specifically. And when I scroll down, I then have all of the questions that the student had, and I can go in and view a question in detail to see the correct answer and how the student answered it. So this way, if you did need to meet with the student, you have all of this to go back and go through, and you even have an explanation for the right answer. And every question also has statistics, and so this will show you what percentage of students have answered this question correctly in the past. And this is based on the site as a whole, so it's not specific to your state necessarily, but that might be something just interesting to note as you go through and look at, is the student missing a lot of DOK level 1 question, or are they missing questions that are more difficult, based on that percent correct. Then back to the benchmarks tab. The next two tabs are really what most teachers like best with the benchmark. And the first one is the student.rank, which shows every student and all of the standards that were part of the benchmark. And you can see a color-coded dot representing how the student scored in every area. And so if you needed to look at what those exact scores are, you can either hover over it, and that will show you what the score is. And again, you have an Excel export, which will put all of that on a spreadsheet with the student scores by standard. Then at the bottom here, you have two buttons, which are really great for giving practice to students. The first one is to assign individual weakness, and what this will do is it will take every student's 3 lowest scoring standards, whatever those were for the student, and it will give them practice questions to work on in those 3 standards. So that one is individualized to every student versus the other button to assign average weakness. This will take the overall 3 lowest scoring standards for the entire class, and you can see what 3 of those are, and then that will give everybody practice with those. So that is a feature that teachers really like because it is so quick and easy to give students practice in the areas where they need it, and we're hoping in the future at some point to add more settings where you can customize if you wanted to exempt a student who, let's say, scored 100 or above a 90 and those specific standards, or if you wanted to be able to give more than one attempt for those questions. So we're working to build up that feature in the future, but that is something right now that we only have if you assign a benchmark. And then the last tab here is an item analysis, where you can go through and see question by question what percentage of your students got it right. And I'm just going to slide this over, which gives me a better view of the questions themselves. And for the questions, obviously it helps to know what exactly they were. So if you scroll down, you then have the questions to go back and look through, and you can sort these questions in different ways. One way that you can sort that's really nice is the percent correct. And when I do that, the page will refresh. And now the most frequently missed questions are at the top. So it's going to start with the lowest percent correct. So this was the most missed question right here. And if I click view, that's going to give me a breakdown for how every single answer choice was selected. And this is a really good page to go over with your students because it doesn't show student scores. You can't see who got it right or wrong. If you were just looking at this for yourself, you can view the students who got the question correct and who didn't, but by default that does not show. So students would not have to see that unless you actually clicked to view those students. And so this way you can very easily see what answer choices might have trick students into answering them. And again, you have the statistics where you can view, just get a sense for how difficult that question is across our site. And you can always give us feedback about a question if you feel it could be improved. That will go directly to our content specialist. And then you can always add a question to your favorites if you want to have very quick access to it in the future when you build a benchmark. Another way that you can sort through the questions is you can click on the standard name for your state up here by question. And what that's going to do is, again, refresh the page so that now every question is grouped by what standard it's for. So here, the standard, here are the two questions that go with it, and I can see the standard average and then and then the percentage for each question as well. So that's another helpful way to look at the questions, is to group them by standard. And again, that's something we only have with a benchmark, because a benchmark, unlike anything else on the site, it's not randomly generated. It's the same questions for every student. And so because of that, you're able to get a lot more data with it. All right, so next, so that was benchmarks. And real quick, I forgot to mention this in assignments. I showed that in that one assignment in the results, the student was able to complete it late because we do give students up to 2 months past a due date. And so if you'd prefer for an assignment to just be done at a certain point, you can click the deactivate button over here on the right, and that will gray out the assignment to where students can no longer access it, but you can still get into your results and do anything that you need to. And you can always reactivate it if you change your mind or want to allow students to work on it again. Okay, so next on our notes outline, we're going to go ahead and go to the Classes tab, because the Classes tab is another way that you can look for lots of different types of reports for how your class is doing. So the first one I want to quickly show is the class results button, which is the one with the magnifying glass. This is going to open up a page which is really just a quick way for you to find results. Then we have lots of different filters, because right now I have nothing. And this is because it only shows me within the past week what students have done for my class. So I haven't had students work on the class, work on anything in the past week. So if I click to see more results, I can do a search for a specific student if I want to see everything that one student has done in my class. I can also search based on the type of activity or a specific date range. So if I wanted to go to the last 3 months, now I have a bunch of results showing, and you can always click to sort. So if I wanted to organize by student, I can just click student, or if I want to organize by date, you can click on these at the top to sort how you want. And so that, again, it's just a quick way if you need to look up a result to see something that a student has done for your class. Now, in addition to class results, the two that I think are most helpful are the class gradebook, which is going to be this dark blue icon. And if you hover over the icons, by the way, you'll get a brief little description for what it is. And if I go to the gradebook, This will show all of your assignments and benchmarks with all of your student scores. So it's one central place to go to. You have your averages at the bottom, and you can also click on an assignment title if you wanted to view more information. So if it's a benchmark, it will open up the benchmark result page. If it's an assignment, it's going to open up what we looked at earlier. So you can get more information from there. You can also click to filter grades at the top, and this gives you a few different options to play around with your gradebook. If you've given students the option to retest their missed questions for an assignment, then you can change to show from the original to the retest scores. If you're on a point system, you can also switch over to points instead of percentages if you like. You can also, if your gradebook gets to be a lot of information, you can use this pink minus to hide that assignment from your main gradebook. So let's say this is last grading period assignment. I don't need to see it right here. I can click to hide it. And so that's removed it. And now it doesn't delete it. So what you can do is up here under show, you can switch back to hidden. Let me refresh that for a second. So filter grades. Okay, and that might be a glitch right now because I can see that 83% is still at the bottom, so it still thinks it's there. But when you use the pink minus, assuming this were working properly, it's going to put it into your hidden grades, and then you can go in there and find anything that you've hidden. You can also sort your assignments by their due date or by title. And then you can also filter exactly what you want to view by date as well. So that's your gradebook. Again, you can export or print if you need to. And then also you have your progress report for your class. And this is very helpful because when you click on the progress report, you're going to have every standard represented, and you're going to see your class average for everyone. And now the difference between the class progress report and something like the benchmark, which also uses these same color-coded dots, is that with the class progress report, this is taking into account every benchmark, every test, every set of practice questions that your class has done. So it's showing you the average for everything versus just one assessment. And so over in the top right, you do have a little gear icon where you can go in and change what you want to be calculated. So if I wanted to add practice questions, I can add them in there. We have include retest scores checked. If you just wanted to look at original scores, you could uncheck that. You could also change your date filter. So if you only wanted to see how your class had done, in the past month or the past week, you can go in and change that. And then just click load, and that's going to change it depending on your filtering. And so what's especially helpful about this is not only can you just go through and get a quick visual for how your class is doing, but you can actually click on any of these dots to give your class practice. So let's say I see a pink dot that I want to give my class some practice in. If I click on the dot, it's going to send me to the assignment system. And now the difference, instead of me going to the assignment system on my own and trying to do this versus clicking on the dot, is that the class is already selected, and when I continue, that exact standard that I just clicked on that dot for is also checked here. So I don't have to try and remember exactly which one it was. It's going to remember that for me, and then I can just give this assignment a title. By default, it's going to choose some random practice questions, but you can always change that. So if you'd prefer for your students to watch a video, or if you wanted the practice questions, but maybe you want to change the difficulty level to beginner, since this is a pink dot where students could be struggling, you can always change that and then assign that assignment to your students. So that's one of the advantages to coming here, is just by clicking on those dots. And you can click on any dot. It doesn't have to be a pink one. You could click on a gray one that your students haven't worked on yet. Then the next page is the student.rank, and this shows the same information, so all test, benchmarks, and practice questions if you've included those. And again, you have your export, but for the student view, you have a link that I want to point out called Student Batch Print. And when you click on this, you can select what students you want a progress report for. And when you click to print, you're going to get an individual progress report for every student. So here's the student's progress report, and again, there's a page break before the next student. So that way, if you did have to have a hard copy of this, you can print that out. And again, you don't have to do it for your entire class. You can pick and choose what students you need this for. And then finally, the last thing that you have here is a graph. And the graph is going to, it's a monthly graph, so it's going to obviously start in August, or the first month that your students work on the site this school year. And this shows me that students have answered a total of 545 questions this month, and the overall score is a 79. So that gives me kind of a big picture, but if I wanted to look specifically at standards, I can switch this over here on the right, and now I can see the scores by standard for the month. I can break that down further if I wanted to go into a specific standard to view those. And so now I can see those scores. And the idea is that each month that your students work on the site, you're going to have these different points plotted. And so next month in September, I'll have September points, and I'll be able to see if the students went up or down in certain standards. You can also view this by student. So if I wanted to view an individual student graph, I can take a look and see if I find a student who's done something. I'll be able to see how that student has performed on the site as well. So this is something we hope that will be a helpful visual for you as you track your class throughout the year. And over on the right, you can download your graph as a PDF. You can also print it out. And one nice thing is that you can annotate it. So if I go back to a view where I had some different standards here, if I go to annotate, if I wanted to make any notes on here and then print or save that version, I could. So we hope that will be a helpful feature to be able to visually see your student and your class growth throughout the course of the school year. And again, keep in mind it's pulling data based on your settings within the little gear icon. So you can decide if you want benchmark, tests, practice questions included, or a combination of different types of questions, and then you can also click to include retest scores if you'd like. So that is everything that I wanted to go through that was outlined on the notes. I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes and see if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, again, be on the lookout for the recording emailed out later today. And as soon as you close out of the webinar, there will be a very quick 3-question survey. If you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to answer the questions there, that would be very helpful because we're trying to offer special topic webinars each month in addition to the 101, 201, 301 sessions. So for example, if I go to the webinars tab, down at the bottom we have a calendar. So here's obviously the 301 today. And next month, our special topic one is about our new token system because we're offering a kind of new way that the games are going to work on the site. So we're going to have an arcade and students will have to earn tokens. So that's the special topic webinar for September. But we're trying to just get a feel for what people are interested in learning about. Maybe it's a specific webinar over just benchmarking, or how to individualize instruction or increase rigor, just some different ideas. So that will be appreciated if you could give us some feedback in the survey. Otherwise, I really, again, appreciate your time, and I will send the recording out later today, and I hope you have a great rest of your morning.